Welcome in, Braves Today podcast. I'm your host, Ben Taylor. Lindsay Crosby joins me as we will start doing this at least a couple of times a week so you guys can keep up to date. It's all brought to you by prizepicks.com. You can also go to the PrizePicks app, use the promo code CHOP. You can get that risk-free money. Also, be sure to visit us at bravestoday.com. Got takeaways after every game, and of course, we will keep you up to date with some audio, like I said, a couple of times a week with a lot of Lindsay throughout the year. We're going to try to get a couple of more people, and it depends on whenever we get certain games and involved in certain series. We'll give you series previews at least twice a week and see what we can go from there. But we don't have a series preview right now. That will come a little bit later in the week. We thought we'd go ahead and get in the habit of the 2 shows per week and kind of do a recap of what we did off-season as far as the Braves are concerned. Lindsay, let's start with off-season moves. I mean, you got the big name, Dansby, gone, which I don't know. Seems like the more information that comes out, maybe he wasn't quite as happy as we all thought he was, even though he says he loves Atlanta and he's from Atlanta. It sounds to me definitely like Chipper maybe wasn't as happy with him as what he should have been. But, you know, we don't have an everyday guy now. I mean, your guy was supposed to be Grissom, and it's not. So what do we do? Season's here.
It's a really tough situation, right?
Yeah.
Like you in 2 straight off seasons, you lose 2 veteran leaders in Freddie Freeman and Dansby Swanson, your longest tenured Braves. And so, yeah, guys have to step up. Right now, Orlando Arcia is going to be playing the position. I still have the expectation that you'll see Braden Shoemake or Vaughn Grissom. My money's on Grissom. You'll see them probably by the end of April. I think whichever guy gets called up, and again, I like Grissom for his offense. I really think that whoever gets called up is going to end up starting 100 games when it's all said and done. The whole idea behind keeping Orlando Arcia is you don't lose the depth and veteran Ehire Adrianza behind him. And it's something where you used 6 different guys at second base last year after Ozzie got hurt.
Yeah.
So Alex Anthopoulos is very much taking the long view and saying, if I give these 2 veterans everyday jobs, send the youngsters to the minors, that's one more guy I have if that worst case scenario happens like happened last year. So I think Arcia is going to be fine. He'll get you through a couple weeks. I'm looking again for end of April. They pick somebody, that guy's up, and that guy's up all year.
Well, and the thing, I had this discussion with a buddy of mine that we were talking about Arcia, and I said, I don't know that the offensive numbers are going to be there. He plays solid defense, so we don't have to worry about a lot of errors making its way up the middle. But when you look at the slow start that Dansby's had the last couple of years, you're basically starting from what you did the last couple of years, where you have a defensive specialist with not a quote-unquote super bat in the lineup.
Right.
So let's move from there. Let's talk about pitching, because the big word is injuries. You got guys that are on IR, you got guys that are on the DL, you got guys that are going to be coming back late. If you read headlines, you think that we're not having a pitcher until after the All-Star break. That's not the case, though. As you and I were talking beforehand, I mean, we're going to see these guys a lot quicker than we thought. As a matter of fact, so soon that this roster will be shaken up probably within the first 5 days, and somebody's going to have to move back down.
Yeah, it's something we've talked all offseason or all spring about Jared Schuster versus Dylan Dodd for that 5th starter's job. And with Kyle Wright being slowed by the shoulder injury that was over the summer, and the cortisone injection took a while to take effect and everything, he's going to get some extra minor league tune-up starts. They're not worried about anything long-term with him. It's just getting the rust off. So Schuster made the opening day roster. Dylan Dodd technically did not, but he'll be a transaction so that he's up in time for, I think, game 4 of the season. He'll come up for that. And then at some point in time, one of those guys will go back down when you bring up Kyle Wright. Not really a big hurry on that. So right now, 4 starters, 9 relievers. You've got an extra off day in there at the very beginning, so you can get by with 4 starters. But you'll see a reliever leave, and then eventually you'll see one of those Schuster or Dodd, one of those 2 guys swap out for Kyle Wright. So not too concerning as far as the starters. And you've got tons of depth in the minors as far as AAA options there as well.
You mentioned, you and I were talking beforehand, I mean, your closing duties are probably going to go to Minner to start with. However, Iglesias, you said that his expected return is right there at the 1st of April.
Yeah, they're talking about it's going to be 2 weeks or so, backdated a few days. They're not too concerned with it. Now, I'm worried they're a little bit too optimistic about this. Obviously, you know how pitcher arms are and how temperamental they are. But you made a good point earlier about AJ Minner steps up into the closing role, but what that does is that kind of shuffles everybody into a higher leverage role than they were initially in. Colin McHugh goes from your middle relief to one of your setup men. And so what does that do to your middle relief options? You call up Michael Tonkin, 33-year-old journeyman. He's up now as your middle reliever versus having somebody like a Nick Anderson or a Kirby Yates in that role. So curious to see what happens, but they're not too concerned about Iglesias. They say it's going to be a couple weeks and he'll be back. And so, I mean, I'm going to trust him until I have reason not to.
Let's stay with pitching for a little bit because the probable starters, I mean, barring nobody's hurt or tweaks anything or gets a blister on their finger, have already been named for the first 7 games, which, by the way, this whole start thing that Major League Baseball started a few years back where they have opening day on a Thursday and then everybody takes Friday off is still the stupidest thing in my mind ever. But I'm not the one running the program here. So because I think you and I had even mentioned either earlier this morning or yesterday we were texting or something where we talked about how there's only like a few games Friday anyway. So it's just kind of odd. But Fried going to get the nod and then move to Strider and then Schuster and then Morton, Dodd, and Fried before we see Strider getting that home start whenever the Braves play host to the Padres.
Yeah, I'm very excited for a couple things in there. One, seeing Strider get that home opener. That's just a really cool moment. Obviously not something he got last year being a reliever when the season started last year. But then also for Schuster and Dodd, both of them get starts near their hometowns. One of them is from the Northeast. They'll get a start against Washington. One of them's from the St. Louis area, I think like Illinois. They get a start against the Cardinals. So it's kind of cool how it worked out for the Braves where they're letting these guys start near their hometowns where they grew up. And it's something where Fried is the obvious choice to get the number 1. Yeah. I'm not really worried where Charlie Morton is. I mean, whether he's 4th or 3rd or 5th, he doesn't care either. Yeah. So Fried, Strider, Schuster, Morton is a pretty good 1 through 4. Add Dylan Dodd at 5. Again, knowing you have a ton of options in the minors and Kyle Wright coming back in a couple weeks, feels like you're in a pretty good spot as far as your rotation is concerned.
Talk about some of the expectations as we head into the year. Now you have a healthy Acuña. There was an article written about him a little bit earlier where his power seems to be back. You can tell his legs are under him. He was even quoted as saying, "I'm hitting the ball further than I've ever hit it before," which is pretty dangerous. I mean, I think he's hit X amount of balls out of the spring training facility. And when I say out, I mean like landed in the parking lot, which is apparently nobody's ever done. And he's already done it multiple times this year. But another guy, and he completely impressed me last year because I was one of the people that the whole organization was burning down that they let Freddie Freeman leave. And then the rumors that came out where it was like Freddie didn't know there was a negotiation and he didn't know there was an offer. And then it just seemed like nobody knew what they were doing. But Olson is on a tear in spring training. And I know people go, yeah, but it's spring training. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'd rather have him on a tear than have him start slow and not come into their own and, 3 weeks into the season.
Ask Cubs fans how they feel about a guy starting in spring training slow because Dansby's not had the best start in spring training. But no, I mean, Matt Olson goes out last year. He gets traded right before the season starts. So they're relocating all this stuff. Still bats .240 with I think it was 34 home runs, a little bit lower than his career numbers. And I really look for this year to be a big home run number. I'm working on the round table. Most of our writers for the site who participated in the round table, they all chose Matt Olson to be the home run leader for this team. It really feels like he's got one of those 40 home run seasons in him that's coming kind of back to his characteristic 250, 260, 270 batting average versus last year's 240. Everything's setting up really well for Matt Olson to have a fantastic age 29 year.
Acuña, we looking at a 40-40 year?
He thinks so. He said he said his goal is to stay healthy and then to run as much as he can. And you'll remember, I think it was 2019, he was just a couple steals short. He had 41 home runs, and I think 37 stolen bases, but he tweaked a hamstring the final week of the season. So he was on the pace in 2021 to do it when he got hurt. Now that he's fully healthy, I really think this is the year where he puts up a 40-40 season. He'll be the sixth player to ever do it. And if he does it, I'm pretty sure he'll be the National League MVP if he does.
Does it have an asterisk beside it with a pitch clock?
I don't think it does. No, I think it's
everybody said the runners have an advantage because when the clock's winding down, pitcher's he's going to start showing tells before the end of the season. So I do wonder, but I'm like you. I don't think it's an asterisk. I think it's just part of the game.
Yeah, I mean that's the way the game's changed. They have to adapt to it. We've seen some pitchers like Max Scherzer with the Mets be very good about using the pitch clock and when they throw over to mess with hitters, to mess with runners and take them off. And the pitch clock and the running game and the emphasis on that, that's why I love the addition of Sean Murphy. Yep. He's got a massive arm, and there is a restriction on how many times your pitcher can throw over to first or to second. There's no restriction on how often your catchers can do it. And so something we've heard a lot of reports in spring training is that all of the catchers are throwing over to first a lot more. They're doing back picks, pitch outs, things like that kind of went away out of the game. They're doing those a lot. And Sean Murphy has the massive arm to make that pay off into outs and to help suppress the running game when you have a non-lefty starter on first base.
You bring up Murphy, and that's one thing we were talking about, key additions. I think he's one that's a key addition. There are a lot of people that didn't find that as a sexy pull whenever we got him. Like you just said, defensively, I think he's a sexy pull. Also, he's coming from a place that it just didn't seem like he was having a whole lot of fun. I think that I think in baseball, more than just about any other, well, I'd say football has this too, but locker room is huge. Locker room and organization. And he seems to be really happy.
Mm-hmm. He, from what I've been told, he really loves his time in Atlanta. And I think a big thing you mentioned is the talent of the roster around him, not only at his position, but up and down. So when he was in Oakland, he, in essence, was the offense. He started almost 120 games at catcher, which is an absurd amount for anybody to start, and then was DH in an additional 30. Well, here he's got Travis d'Arnaud to share the load with. And then offensively, he's not asked to carry this team because you have an Austin Riley, you have a Ronald Acuña, you have a Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies. You have all of these offensive weapons where Sean Murphy can be another piece of the puzzle. So it's like, hey, you stay back there, you show your amazing defense, you hit, don't stress out about it. We've got this handled. We just need you to be you. Feels like a great way to have a fantastic year as you enter age 28.
Say that to say this is we got to hit one more thing before we get out of here. New unis announced. You and I'm excited for sure, just because you see the Murph jersey behind me, the grays. I mean, that grays have always been one of my favorites, but the city unis are just the big A, the tribute to Hammer and Hank. I mean, it's everything any Braves fan that's grown up watching the Braves just should love. And I haven't seen any negative publicity online at all.
The only thing I've seen is people think it's a little bit too close to that old school jersey that Hank Aaron wore. And that's the point.
Yeah,
Nike, that's the idea. Nike only gives you 4 jerseys a season plus your City Connect. And so the Braves are already in a crunch because you've got the reds, you've got the grays, the creams, the blue. You had to get rid of something already. So they found a way to take the alternate and make it the City Connect and get around the rule. I love the City Connects. I'm definitely getting a hat when they come out. I'm probably getting a jersey too. And the good thing is 7 of these starters on the field are here for 8 or 10 years. So you can feel comfortable buying a jersey knowing that guy's going to be around for a while.
That seems to be something that I've said, just in case. I'll throw this out there. My wife has bought me 2 jerseys, one of which was Freddie Freeman, and then he left the next year. I told her this was all her fault. And then she bought me years ago, the year that Chipper announced he was retiring, she got me a Chipper Jones jersey. And I was like, you did hear that he's going to be retiring at the end of the year. And she's like, well, I thought you wanted it. I was like, yeah, it's just last year though, honey. I mean, that's collector's item, I guess you could say. He's Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor. BravesToday.com is where you can find a lot of this work. It's all been brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com or download the app. Use the promo code CHOP, that's CHOP, for your risk-free money. Braves_today. Follow us on the Twitter, as we'll be more than happy to tweet back at you every now and then. But they've got takeaways after every single game. BravesToday.com. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.